Today we got a Pioneer PLX50. This is one of those compact turntables that was part of the X50 system, and this one has seen better days. Let's just see whether we can figure this thing out. This normally had a front cover that would open when you turned it on or opened it up. This would open up and the turntable ejects. That's broken. I don't know if we can fix that or not. Probably not. Looks like the plastic is broken. The pins are broken off here, so that is broken. I'm not going to be able to do anything on that. That's how I received it. Let's check it out and see if this thing does anything. So we'll turn on the power and see if this thing will open. Well, I don't see this thing doing anything. This should open, I would think. Let's just take the top off this one. Trying to figure out how to make this thing open, and I realized that there's a switch on the side here that I guess gets activated when this lever pulls down, however it works. But if I close the switch and press the start stop button, it very, very slowly moves the turntable out. To the start position. We need to remove the turntable from this as well, and the turntable, you have to remove this screw on the bottom to remove the table. So we'll take the screw out from the bottom here. And now the turntable should lift out of here, which it does. And here is the belt is deteriorated to nothing. I mean, this one didn't even turn to goo. This one just broke. So that's shot. This belt here is the one that opens and closes the drawer. So that one is, as you can see, is pretty much on its last legs too. The other belt would go underneath here. I think the motor's underneath on this side over here. The motor's on the left side here. So the belt has to be fished underneath here and then around the actual table itself. And this is quite stiff. This bearing needs to be repacked. Yeah, that bearing's in bad shape. This unit may not be worth repairing. Just looking at it. Needs at least at least two belts, but it's not even functioning when I try to operate it. When I press the start stop button, for example, nothing happens. It may be due to the fact that when this cover is on, it activates switches to activate the system. Kind of looks that way. That cover has a role to play. Because that pushes on this lever here. So we can see what that connects to. There's a lever right here, and I bet you it's this lever right there. Aha, that's the lever. So when the door is open, it pushes this lever down. Aha. You see, that's what happens here. There's a lever down here, and when the door is open, it pulls down on this lever, or pushes up on that lever, which if we look at the top mechanism here, that activates that switch. So without the actual door, there's no way for the unit to be signaled that it needs to open or close. If I want to take this bearing apart, all I got to do is just loosen off the screw here. And the bearing will pull out. Now I can clean up the bearing and see whether this thing will spin any more freely. See if we can get this thing to kind of do something. Clean all this gunk out of here, and we'll lubricate. Lubricate the bearing here. Yeah, that's spinning a little bit better. Get some WD-40 working in there, and then we'll put some oil in. Okay, got the bearing back together. Spinning quite nicely now. So even though I don't have a belt for this, I want to see whether the mechanism itself is going to do anything. So I'm going to put the turntable back in place like I would if I had a belt. And basically what you would do is you would fish the belt around here first and have the belt out. Hold the belt out, put the turntable in place, and then put your belt around there if I had one, which I don't. But we'll investigate getting a belt if the mechanism itself can be made to work. I just want to put the bottom screw back in here now. See, it's not going to work properly without that front cover because that's activating the switch, but we might be able to bypass that switch and maybe, just maybe make it work. I'm not holding my breath at this point, but I want to just see whether this thing will actually go through the motions and whether the tone arm is going to move on it. So we'll secure the turntable. I'm not going to put a record on here, so don't worry about the bit of lubricant that's on here. Okay, so now for this thing to operate, we have to start out with the unit closed. Now to make this thing work, normally what happens, and I have a record here to put on it to simulate that it's got a record, because it uses this little sensor here to sense if there's a record that's been placed on it. So to play a record on one of these things, what you did was you press the open or press the start stop button. First you would of course open the lid on the front. So that will start the mechanism coming out. I'm having to help it here because one of the belts is slipping. Okay, turntable comes out. You place your favorite record on, and then press the start stop button. And what happens is this thing will retract part of the way in. Aha! And then the tone arm swings out. And it plays. And to stop it, you press the start-stop button. The tone arm will retract all the way back to the storage position. And it stops. You can take your record out, turn your record over, put your record back in, press start. It should start and detect that there's a record on. Oh, wait a minute. Has to do this. I forgot about that. Has to come out so you can take the record off, turn the record over, put the record back on, press the start button again. It'll start to spin as it goes in. That way it can detect that the record is actually on there. And then it'll bring the arm out again. Play side 2. At this point, you can pick the arm up and you can move it wherever you want. Once it gets to the end of the record, if the repeat is not turned on, it should pick the record up, pick the arm up. Okay, which it does. And at this point, it moves back. Now, the record should come out, which it does. At this point, if I take the record off and I press the start-stop button without a record in place, it's now detecting that there's no record, and it won't stop halfway in. It'll go all the way in. You heard that click? That was detecting that there's no record in place. See, the turntable has to be turning for it to detect this because there's just a little lever that it hits as it makes a rotation. And then that door closes and the unit now is completely shut off. And on these units, to turn them on, how you turn this turntable on was when you pulled on the front cover. The front cover here is up like this. How these turntables turned on with this front cover in place was you open this down. And when you open that down, that's what activated the switch over on the side here. Because what that does is there's a little lever here. This, as you can see, the pin was broken here for the pivot on both sides. But when this is in, it's closed like that, it covers up all these switches. Switches are completely covered. So when you pull this down, this little foot would push up on this lever down here. It would push up on this little lever here, which would in turn move this lever back. So there's the lever down here. Where is it? There's the lever here. And that would move that, like that. See? So when you pull the front cover open, that activates the switch. So now that turns on the power. This is basically your power switch for the unit. So that turns on the power when you open this up, and then the start stop button would bring the turntable out. Now if I press the start stop button, it would start the turntable turning. But if there's no record on there, you hear that click. That's telling it that there's no record. And that's that. If I open it again, and this time if I close it, but while I'm closing it, I'll hold that button down. It'll get to halfway. And then the tone arm comes into play. Sounds like the motor is running. I can hear the motor for the actual turntable itself. You can hear the motor running. There's a click. There's the click. That's telling it that there's no record. So the tray goes all the way in. The unit stops. Now when you're done, you close up the lid. That turns off the switch. So this lid here is actually mechanical. It might close just when the lid closes on its own, but when you open to start it up, you did that to start these things up. Anyway, that's that. Don't know we can do anything more on this. I'll let the guy know that's got this and see what he wants to do. It's not going to function properly without this door. But that switch could be bypassed and the unit would function.